What jobs will make you fit or have a better body than working out? I was in the best shape of my life when I worked for a beer distributor. Yeah, I work as a brewer, and it definitely keeps you in shape. When half kegs weigh 165 pounds and bags of grain weigh 50 to 55. Lots of lifting of those things. Massage therapist here. Objectively, fittest person I've ever worked on who didn't work out was a female carpenter in her 50s. She was objectively incredibly proportioned and strong as heck. Second fittest was a dog walker, also claimed to not work out much. I was in great shape as a mover junk remover. I think the problem is that any job that has the potential to make you very physically fit also carries a fairly high risk of significant injury. Unlike exercise done under very controlled conditions, such jobs often require movements, positions, locations that leave you prone to injury. I've never met a fat UPS driver. Landscaping jobs can be a real workout. Retail as well, though it depends a bit on what exactly your role is. What did people love 1,000 years ago, still love today, and will definitely love 1,000 years from now? Followed by music and mind-altering substances. Going really fast, only the means changed. Then it was horses, now it's cars. What's something that people under 25 will never understand? Calling your friend's house on the landline and making small talk with their parents when they were the ones who answered until your friend got to the phone. Calling your local theater for showtimes, or checking the newspaper for showtimes. Two things: what life was like before the internet and cable TV. The relationship between a cassette tape and a pencil. Taking pictures, then waiting for them to be developed to see if they turned out okay. Yeah, I am really old, lol. Having to be bored whilst waiting. What is the most bone-chilling sentence you've heard someone say? My daddy's dead. A 6-year-old girl calling in her father's suicide when I was a 911 dispatch trainee. I'm gonna go home, get my hunting rifle, come back here and shoot you in the face. An actual death threat given by a player. I was security in a casino. I was escorting out. The police were called, and they found the threat serious enough to arrest him and put him on a psych hold. The hospital social worker wants to meet with you. This was said to me after a coworker drove me to the hospital. We'd gotten the message that my husband was in a car accident. I figured he'd busted his leg and would have a crappy few weeks, but that would be that. I was greeted with the above sentence, and a thought smacked me upside the head so intensely that I could literally hear ringing in my ears afterward. The social worker only shows up when people might die. My husband had multiple leg fractures, a collapsed lung, and was bleeding out from internal abdominal wounds. He was thankfully able to be saved and returned home after a few weeks in the hospital and had PT for several months, but the physical damage was intense and will have lifelong effects, especially the intestinal bowel stuff. I watched most of my friends get gunned down on that beach. My great-grandfather told me this the first and only time I asked about the war. He landed in Normandy. I can't imagine what it's like watching as most of your friends are just gunned down instantly. A friend's older aunt who posted a comment under my friend's Facebook post about being abused as a kid by a family friend I'll call Kevin. My friend described her abuse when Kevin was always around the family as a general neighbor, handyman, and helper who also quietly groomed her and made himself out to be her boyfriend until she was hospitalized for self-harm at 13. My friend was saved by a mandatory reporter, Kevin found to have a history with young girls, and took his own life. That fucked up my friend for years. Her aunt came out with a comment like, "Oh, it wasn't like that. I remember when you and Kevin came over to help with my gutters. You made the most beautiful couple. You adored each other." The aunt moved overseas when my friend was 11, so she was describing a time when my friend was a preteen with Kevin aged 26, as a beautiful couple. She was being abused by this man as an 11-year-old. He pretended to be a friend to the family, and even some of her own family saw and remembered it as a consensual, happy relationship. Gives me the creeps thinking about how invisible some of this is. This happened about 10 years ago. It was about 10 p.m., and my around 5-year-old niece asked my wife for some candy. She said yes, and then I whispered to her, "It's a little late. Maybe she should wait till tomorrow." My wife agreed and told her to wait till the next day. I didn't think anything of it, went into my room, left the door open, but had all the lights off. I laid down in bed and was playing some random game on the laptop. All of a sudden, I look up and see my niece standing at the foot of the bed. She turns to me and says, "I know it was you that said I couldn't have any candy." Kids are creepy. You need to get to the hospital. Your dad's heart rate is starting to drop. I was 16 at the time, and he died just a minute or two before I made it to him. People over 35. How often do you party or go out past 3 a.m. nowadays, and why that amount? Going out past 11 p.m. rarely happens at 50. We party just starting in the afternoon. There's a club night recently started in the UK called Day Fever by John McClure from Reverend and the Makers. It's a normal club night with music and alcohol, etc., but it starts in the early afternoon, so you finish in time for a normal bedtime. Been a massive hit with 40-plus crowds in the cities they've done it in. Jesus fuck no, never. I used to party all night, but I couldn't think of anything worse now. I like to be home and in my pajamas by midnight. Midnight? I better be sleeping by then, lol. Ha! I haven't done that in years, and I have absolutely zero desire to do it. I used to, all the time, in my 20s and 30s. Now it sounds awful. Parenting with that debilitating hangover? Fuck that. I drove the fast lane all through my 20s. Now I'm in the cruising lane and have no desire to go fast. I've also picked up hobbies I couldn't when I was younger, due to either lack of money, time, or because I was out partying. So I have plenty to keep myself busy. 3 a.m.? Bud, I'm in bed on Friday night by 10 if I have any control over the situation. There isn't a party on the planet better than getting good sleep. What do you dislike about politics? The polarization and lack of genuine collaboration for the common good. I don't know a ton about politics, but when I look at political stuff, it always feels like people treat it like football. Everyone just roots for their home team or whichever one their parents are a fan of, and spend their time rooting for them to beat the opposition for points on TV. A lot of people don't seem to really care what happens as long as their team wins. I really hate how some people act like compromising on any topic is the same as switching parties. The politicians, it's all self-interest and preserving the status quo for the elite. Very few people seem to be in it to actually make life better for society as a whole. The focus on culture war nonsense instead of how to actually make the country better. Both sides fuck over the working class people. Constant bickering on who's right or wrong. Can they just work together for all citizens' benefit? Serious. What is something subtle that bothers you when people get away with it? Leaving their shopping cart in a parking space instead of returning it to the cart corral. People who decide they don't want whatever they had at a store and just plop it down wherever they want, rather than back where it goes. Announcing your pregnancy or engagement at a wedding, like, come on dude, wait a day, then you can have your moment. It genuinely bothers me when people are able to call SWAT teams on streamers and random people and don't face any repercussions. And speaking of swatting, how do they get away with the damages they cause to innocent people's homes and accidentally causing deaths? When people skip a bunch of people and cut in line. When there's a really backed up turn lane and someone drives all the way to the front of it, the next lane over, and then merges into the turn lane at the last minute. Not only is it an asshole move, you just know they're thinking, this is such a brilliant life hack. I can't believe none of these losers waiting in line thought of it, huh? What's one illegal thing that nobody cares about if you do it? Auction fraud. This happened a lot during the Dust Bowl, but I heard this happened again a few years ago. Woman's husband died. She got behind in her mortgage payments. They foreclosed and put the property up for auction. The entire town showed up at the auction. She put in a bid, and no one else bid. She was able to get her house back with a new mortgage for pennies on the dollar. That is the most heartwarming story I've heard all week. It has restored my faith in humanity. The unspoken part of it was that anybody who outbid the widow probably wouldn't survive to enjoy their new property for very long. I am Scottish and have been to and wandered around Carlisle in England many times, which is close to the border. I should have been whipped or jailed every time. I am a filthy criminal. Eat ice cream cone on Sunday on Bank Street, downtown Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Weird law. Building illegal Lego builds. Well, that's another episode of Ask Reddit in the books. I really appreciate all of you who made it this far into the video. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, it would really help the channel out a lot if you gave the video a thumbs up, subscribe, or leave a comment down below. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.